Right, there you are. No need to do anything now. You've done the day already, all of it, every last awkward email and half-finished cup of tea, and it's behind you now, where it belongs. You can put it down, you're allowed. Get yourself comfortable. Properly comfortable, I mean, not the polite version where you're balanced on the edge of the pillow, being considerate to the rest of the bed. Sprawl a bit. Let your shoulders come down from wherever they've been hiding all day, somewhere up around your ears by the sound of it. There we go. That's better? I'm just going to talk for a while. That's the whole arrangement. You don't have to follow it. You don't have to remember any of it. And there will absolutely not be a quiz in the morning, which I think we can both agree is a relief. If your mind drifts off halfway through a sentence and never comes back, that's not you failing to pay attention. That's the entire point. That's you doing it correctly. Top marks, let's just take a moment, before we go anywhere, to let your body understand that the day is over. Start with your breathing if you like. You don't have to do anything clever with it. Just notice it for a second. The slow in, the slow out. You've been breathing all day without giving it a single thought faithfully in the background, while you got on with everything else. And it's still going now, steady as anything, asking nothing of you. Let the out-breath be a little longer than the in. That's the only trick there is, and it's barely a trick. Long, slow out-breaths, like a sigh, like setting something down. Your body knows this signal. It means we're safe now, we can stand down. And let your face soften while you're at it. We carry such a lot in our faces without realising. The jaw held a bit tight. The little frown that's been sitting between your eyebrows since some email this afternoon. You can let all that go now. There, already you look more like someone who's about to sleep. And then just let yourself get heavy. That's the loveliest part, the heaviness. Let the bed take your full weight, really take it. The way it's been waiting to all day. You don't have to hold any of yourself up anymore. Not your arms, not your legs, not your head. Not the great invisible weight of everything you were carrying around. Hand it all over to the mattress. That's its job. Let it do its job. Sink down into it, an inch heavier with every out-breath until you're not holding anything up at all. There we go. That's a body getting ready to sleep. So here's what we're doing tonight, and then you can stop listening properly and just let it wash over you. You know the Marvel films, the big ones, the ones everyone's seen, the ones where somebody in a cape makes a difficult choice on a rooftop while a city falls down behind them. We all know how those stories went. We watched them go that way. But here's the thing I've always found rather lovely about a story. Every single one of them is balanced on a little stack of choices, and every one of those choices could have gone the other way. Somebody turned left instead of right. Somebody held their temper, or didn't. Somebody picked up the phone, or let it ring. And if you nudge just one of those moments, gently, the way you'd move a sleeping cat off a warm chair, no drama, the whole story tips off in a completely different direction and arrives somewhere it was never meant to go. That's all we're doing tonight. We're going to wander through a handful of those other directions, the roads not taken, the worlds that almost were and then, for the want of one small thing, weren't. None of them can touch you, by the way. I want to be clear about that before we start, because some of these are big, dramatic worlds with quite a lot going on in them, and I don't want you bracing for anything. There's nothing to brace for. These are just stories about things that didn't happen, told quietly, in the dark, by someone who has no intention of raising his voice. You can hold them the way you'd hold a snow globe, turn it over, watch the little flakes come down, set it back on the shelf. They're not heavy. You're not carrying them anywhere. I'll move between these worlds slowly. When one of them comes to an end, I'll let it go dark, like a room when you've clicked the lamp off, and we'll drift across to the next one. You won't need to do anything to come along. You'll just sort of find yourself there. And honestly, my hope is that you won't make it through all of them. My hope is that somewhere around the third or fourth world, you'll quietly slip under, and the rest of this will just become a low warm sound somewhere off to the side, like a telly left on in another room of a house you grew up in. That would be the best possible outcome, as far as I'm concerned. If you're still awake at the end, well, we'll have a think about that when we get there. But I rather suspect you won't be. You sound tired. You've earned it. So, nothing to do, nowhere to be, nothing coming for you, just a voice and a series of little worlds that never quite happened, and the long, slow slope down towards sleep. One more thing before we go, and then I'll stop explaining myself, and we'll just begin. You might notice as we wander through these that I've got opinions about them. I do, I can't help it. I find some of these people maddening, and some of them lovely, and one or two of them I'd quite like to sit down with for a cup of tea and a stern word. I'll probably tell you which is which as we go. You're under no obligation to agree. These are just the thoughts of one person, talking quietly in the dark, and you can take them or leave them, or drift off in the middle of them, all of which are perfectly fine. I'm not trying to convince you of anything. I'm just keeping you company while you fall asleep. And a bit of opinion makes for warmer company than a flat recital of facts, I've always thought. Nobody ever drifted off happily to someone reading a list. So there'll be opinions, fair warning, and I'll wander. That's the other thing. I'll start telling you about one corner of a world and find myself 3 streets over, describing something else entirely. The way you do when you're tired and talking to someone you're comfortable with. Don't try to keep up. There's nothing to keep up with. The wandering is the point. Let it carry you the way a slow river carries a leaf. No effort, no steering, just drifting along on the current of it, down and down, towards sleep. Right. That's enough preamble. Let's begin. Gently. Timelines branch in the dark like rivers do. Quietly, without asking permission, splitting off and finding their own way down to the sea. We're going to follow a few of those branches now. The first one starts in a city you'll recognise, on a day that everyone remembers going one particular way. Let's see how it might have gone instead. So, New York, the big one, with the hole in the sky. You remember how it actually went. The portal tears open above Manhattan, this great churning wound in the afternoon, and out of it pours an army that nobody on Earth was remotely ready for. And the heroes do their heroic thing. And right at the death, Tony Stark flies a nuclear missile up through the hole and into the alien fleet on the other side. And the big green chap catches him on the way back down, and the portal slams shut, and everyone goes for a quiet shawarma and stares at the table. You know the one. But it was close. That's the part people forget, because it worked. And once a thing works, we tend to file it under, obviously, going to work all along. It wasn't obviously anything. It came down to one man, one missile, and one chance to destroy the Chitauri mothership that had to line up perfectly. Pull any thread of that, and the whole afternoon unravels. So let's pull a thread. Just a small one. Let's say the window doesn't line up. Imagine the portal stays open. The missile goes up, the same as ever, but the timing's off by a breath. Or the device that was meant to close the thing simply doesn't. And the great wound in the sky doesn't seal itself. It just keeps hanging there over the city, wide open, with the cold light of somewhere else spilling down through it. And the army keeps coming. That's the thing about a door you can't shut. It doesn't matter how brave you are on this side of it if there's no end to what's on the other. Now, in the version we know, the heroes won because the invasion ran out of road, cut off the supply, and the soldiers already on the ground are just stragglers, mopped up by lunchtime. But in this world, there's no cutting it off. There's no end to the road. And so, slowly, and it is slow, this is not a thing that happens in an afternoon. The most extraordinary people on the planet come to a quiet, awful realization that they are not going to win this one by hitting it harder. I find that genuinely interesting, Not sad exactly. Interesting. Because what do you do if you're one of these people when fighting harder stops being the answer? You've spent your whole life being the answer, and now the answers run out. They retreat. That's what they do. It's not glamorous and there's no speech. They just gradually stop trying to hold the island and start trying to get people off it instead, which is, when you think about it, a far harder and far braver thing to do. There are no cameras for that bit. You don't get a statue for organising the boats, and the city empties. Manhattan of all places, Manhattan goes quiet. Picture that for a second, because it's the strangest image in this whole world and the one I keep coming back to. All those streets that never sleep, finally asleep. The taxis stopped where they were left. The lights in the towers gone dark, one window at a time. Not from any single dramatic moment, but just from everybody, everywhere, deciding it was time to leave. A great roaring place gone soft and still, with that cold light from the open sky laid over the top of it like frost. And up above it all, on a balcony that used to belong to somebody very rich, stands Loki. Crown and all. He's won, technically. He's got the thing he said he wanted, the throne, the kneeling crowds, the whole performance. The trouble with Loki, and I say this with a certain amount of fondness because he's by far the most entertaining person in any room he's ever been in, is that he never actually thought about the bit that comes after the winning. None of the dramatic ones do. They're all spectacular at the conquering and absolutely hopeless at the Tuesday afternoon 3 weeks later when the conquered city needs its bins collected and nobody's quite sure whose job that is now. So he stands on his balcony, lord of a quiet kingdom, holding the glowing blue cube that started all this, and he looks rather magnificent and rather alone, and somewhere underneath the crown, I think a small cold thought is beginning to dawn on him. The thought that he's not actually in charge here, that he never was, that the army he let in answers to someone else entirely, someone patient, someone very far away who has been watching all of this with the mild interest of a man watching a kettle, knowing it'll boil in its own time. We don't see that someone, not properly, just a shape in the dark at the edge of everything, pleased in no hurry whatsoever, because from where he's sitting, this went rather well. He didn't even have to get up. And the heroes, they don't vanish. That's the gentle part of this gentle world. They go underground, literally, some of them, into the tunnels and the basements and the half-flooded places under a city that stopped pretending to be a city. They become something quieter than heroes. They become the people who keep the lights on in the small rooms, who get the children somewhere safe, who remember, on behalf of everyone, too frightened to remember it themselves, that this was not always how things were, and need not always be. There's a man with a shield down there. He's not leading an army anymore. He's mostly just making sure people eat and sleep and don't give up, which it turns out is what he was always best at. There's a woman who used to be a spy and now spends her nights moving people through the dark from one safe room to the next, learning all their names, never writing any of them down. There's a scientist who stopped being angry, more or less because there's nothing left to be angry at that anger would fix, and so instead he's become rather gentle, which suits him. And every so often one of them risks coming up to the surface, up into the conquered city, in the dark, just to see. Just to remember what's up there, and to leave some small sign that the resistance is still alive. Someone paints something on a wall, maybe, where the morning crowds will see it. Not a threat, not a battle cry, just a few quiet words, "We are still here," left in the night for the frightened city to find at dawn. And it isn't much, it won't topple a throne, but you'd be surprised what a few quiet words on a wall can do for people who've started to believe they're alone. Somebody on their way to queue for bread sees it and stops and reads it, and something in their chest that had gone flat and grey lifts, just slightly, just enough. We are still here. Someone's still out there. Someone hasn't given up. And they walk on a little straighter, and they carry that small warmth with them through the grey day. And that night they tell their children a story about the people who stood in the gap, with a bit more belief in it than they had the night before. That's how a resistance actually works, you know. Not in great battles, in small signs left in the dark, passing courage quietly from one frightened person to the next, keeping a flame alive that the conqueror can't find to put out, because it isn't in any one place. It's spread thin across 1,000 hearts, a little in each, impossible to gather up and snuff. You can take a city, you can take a throne, but that flame spread that thin across that many people No one has ever worked out how to take that. It's the one thing that never quite falls. They've lost. And yet there's a softness to how they've lost that I find oddly comforting. Nobody's fighting anymore. The shouting's all done. What's left is just people, in the dark, looking after each other, the way people always have when the big plans fall through, which they do. The big plans nearly always fall through, and the world goes on being held together, quietly, by the unglamorous ones who stayed. I think they're all right in the end, these people. I don't think this is a sad world. It's just a slower one, and a darker one, and a more patient one. The kind of world where winning the war wouldn't have been the point anyway, where the point was always just to make it through the night and look after the person next to you while you did. And life, life finds a way of carrying on even under a sky with a hole in it. That's the thing about people that no conqueror has ever quite reckoned with. You can take the towers and the streets and the throne, and people will simply pick up their lives somewhere lower down and quieter and keep on living them. Markets spring up in this world, in the half-light, in the basements and the underground stations and the tunnels. Little markets where someone's selling bread again, real bread, and somebody else has gotten a few vegetables growing under lamps. And there's a man who fixes shoes, and a woman who started cutting hair again, because people still, even now, even here, want to feel a bit more like themselves. There's a sort of stubborn ordinariness to it that I find genuinely moving. The world ends, more or less, and somebody still wants a haircut. Somebody still queues, politely, for bread. We are an extraordinarily hard people to fully defeat when you get right down to it. You'd have to take away the queuing and the haircuts and the small daily kindnesses, and nobody's ever managed that. Not really. Not for long. And in those low, quiet places, the old stories get told. That's the part of this world I love the most. Down in the tunnels by lamplight, the people who remember the way things used to be, they tell the children. They tell them about the day the sky opened and the impossible things came through, and the handful of people who stood in the gap and held it as long as they could. They don't tell it as a defeat. They tell it as a promise. They say, this is not how it has always been, and so it is not how it must always be. They keep the memory of the open sky alive precisely so that the children will grow up knowing it can be closed again. And the children listen, wide-eyed in the warm lamplight, and then they go to sleep on whatever's soft, and they dream, not of the army, but of the people who stood in the gap. You'd be amazed what a story can keep alive through a long dark winter. Whole kingdoms have been kept warm on nothing but a story told well in the dark to someone small. The cold light over the city softens. The towers go dim, one window at a time, until there's nothing up there but the dark and the faint blue glow. Fading now, fading. And that world goes quiet and lets us go. Let's go somewhere warmer now, somewhere with sun on it. Wakanda, the hidden kingdom, the one that spent centuries pretending to be a poor little country, so the rest of the world would leave it alone, when all the while it was the most advanced place on the planet, tucked behind a shimmer in the air that made it look like nothing much at all. I've always loved that as an idea, actually. The richest house on the street, keeping the curtains drawn and the front garden deliberately scruffy so nobody comes knocking. There's something very human in it. We all know a person or two who does exactly that. Now, in the story we know, there's a fight at the top of a waterfall. Two men with a claim to the throne, settling it the old way, by hand, on the wet rock, with the whole nation watching. And T'Challa loses. He gets thrown off the falls, down into the gorge, and everyone assumes that's the end of him. But it isn't. He survives. He's pulled out of the cold river half dead by a mountain tribe who don't much like the royal family, and he's nursed back, and he comes back, and he sets things right. That's how it goes. He falls, and then he climbs back up. But falling off a waterfall is no small thing. People don't, as a rule, survive being thrown off a waterfall. He very nearly didn't. So let's take that one slender thread, the thread where he happens to live, and let's just, ever so gently, let it go. Imagine he doesn't come back. The river takes him, and that's that. And there's no king left to come up out of the cold water with a new suit and a steadier heart. There's only Killmonger standing at the top of the falls in the late afternoon light, victorious, with the whole of Wakanda kneeling, because the old law says they must. And here's the thing about Killmonger, because I don't want to paint him as a simple villain, since he never was one. He wasn't wrong about everything. That's what made him so difficult. He'd grown up far from this golden place, in a hard part of a hard city, watching the people he loved get nothing, while a hidden kingdom full of miracles kept its gates shut and its curtains drawn, and decided, century after century, that the suffering of the wider world was simply none of its business. And he was furious about that. And quietly, between us, he had a point. The fury was real, and the reason for it was real, and you could follow the whole terrible road of his life and understand exactly how he ended up at the top of those falls. Understanding isn't the same as agreeing, but it's not nothing either. The trouble is what he does with the throne once he's on it. Because his answer to a world full of locked gates is to throw open the armory, the deepest one, the one full of weapons made from that miracle metal, vibranium, the stuff that's stronger and stranger than anything else on Earth. And he starts sending it out into the world, in crates on ships, to anyone with a grievance and a reason to fight, which is to say, very nearly everyone. The idea being to arm the unarmed, to tip every scale that's ever been tipped against the people he grew up among, to set the whole thing alight and let it burn down to something fairer. And you can almost see the appeal if you squint and you're very tired and you've had a hard day yourself. But a fire doesn't burn down only to fairness. A fire just burns. It doesn't read the label on the crate. It doesn't check whose hands it ends up in. Once you've sent that much power out into a world that's already frightened and angry and quick to reach for a weapon, you don't get to decide where it goes next. Nobody does. That's the part the dramatic ones never quite believe, until it's far too late, that you can light the match, but you cannot, ever, tell the flame which way to lean. But I said I'd keep this gentle, and I will, because the part of this world I actually want to sit in isn't the fire. It's the quiet in the palace. Because back home, in Wakanda itself, not everyone kneels with their heart. Their knees, yes, the law's the law, but not their hearts. There's a general, a fierce and loyal woman who has spent her whole life in service to the throne, and she finds to her own surprise that her loyalty was never really to the chair. It was to the idea of the place, to what Wakanda was meant to be. And watching it become a forge for the world's wars, she goes very still and very quiet, and she makes a choice that costs her everything she thought she was. And there's a spy out in the world who simply refuses, who keeps doing the small good work in the shadows, moving people to safety, slipping the right thing to the right hands, the way she always has, because somebody has to remember what the place was for. That general I mentioned, the loyal one, the one who went still and quiet when she saw what the throne was becoming, I keep thinking about her, because hers is the hardest road in this whole world. She spent her entire life believing that loyalty was the highest thing, that you served the throne and you didn't ask questions, that the duty was the point. And now the throne's asking her to do things her own heart can't stomach, and she has to work out, alone, in the small hours, what loyalty actually means when the thing you've sworn yourself to has gone wrong. Is it to the chair or to the country? To the king or to the idea of the king? It's the oldest, loneliest question a good soldier can face, and there's no one she can ask, because anyone she asks, she puts in danger. So she carries it by herself, this enormous quiet question, going about her duties with a face that gives nothing away, while inside her something, slowly, painfully, comes loose from its old moorings and drifts toward a braver and more dangerous understanding of what she owes and to whom. People think courage is the loud thing on the battlefield. It isn't mostly. Mostly it's this: a person, alone in the quiet, deciding to do the harder right thing when the easier, wrong thing would cost them nothing. She gets there in the end. It takes everything she has, but she gets there. And there's a young woman in a laboratory, a genius, the kind of mind that comes along once in a generation, who has lost her brother now, lost him to the cold river, and she works alone, late, under a single lamp, in a lab that used to be full of his laughter. She doesn't make weapons, she refuses to. She just keeps the lights on, and keeps the old knowledge safe, and waits, because she's clever enough to know that fires burn out, eventually, and that when this one does, somebody will need to remember how to build instead of burn. And there's a whole nation of ordinary people here too, who never asked for any of it. The farmers up in the highlands, the teachers, the people who drive the silent trains and tend the gardens and keep the great hidden city actually running. They didn't choose the new king and they can't unchoose him. And so they do what ordinary people always do under a rule they didn't ask for. They keep their heads down and they look after their own. And they wait. A grandmother still walks her grandchildren to school, past walls that now have soldiers on them, and she squeezes their small hands a little tighter, and she tells them in the old language that this too will pass, the way she's told them about every hard thing. The market traders still set out their stalls in the morning. The river still runs through the city the way it always has, not caring in the slightest who sits on the throne, which is rather the river's whole attitude to everything, and always has been. There's a deep, slow patience in a place that stood for thousands of years. It has seen difficult kings before. It will, in its unhurried way, outlast this one. Stone is patient, rivers are patient, and the people who live alongside stone and rivers learn to be patient too in the bone, in a way that no amount of fury on a throne can ever quite touch. And the spy I mentioned, the one out in the wider world, refusing, she keeps a list, not of enemies, of people, the ones she's gotten to safety, the ones she still means to. She moves through the trouble her king has scattered across the globe, and everywhere she goes she does one small good thing, and then another, quietly, off to the side of the great loud catastrophe, the way good is nearly always done. Not in a grand sweep, but in 1,000 tiny acts nobody sees. She gets a family across a border. She gets a shipment turned back before it reaches the wrong hands. She is, all by herself, a small steady argument against everything the new king believes, made not in speeches, but in deeds, night after night, on the quiet edges of the map. And she's tired often, but she keeps going. People like her always do. That's rather the definition of them. That's the image I'll leave you with from this one. Not the crates and the ships and the world tipping over. Just that lab, late at night, one lamp. A brilliant young woman bent over her work, grieving, patient, keeping a small flame of the real Wakanda alive in a building gone quiet, so that one day, not tonight, not soon, but one day, there'll be something left to build the kingdom back from. And she talks to him while she works, sometimes, to her brother, the lost king, the way you talk to someone who's gone when the room is quiet enough and the hour is late enough. She tells him what she's working on. She tells him she's keeping things safe and that she's not going to let the rest of it be lost too, whatever it costs. It isn't a sad scene, quite, though it sounds like one. It's more like a promise being kept, night after night, alone under her lamp. She works on. The lamp throws a warm circle on the bench. Outside, the great halls of the palace stand empty and echoing in the dark, and the new king sits on his stolen throne with all the power he ever wanted, and none of the peace he was actually looking for, which was never going to be in a throne in the first place. The lab light dims, the halls go darker still, and the whole golden kingdom, troubled as it is, folds itself down into the night and lets us drift on past, and we leave that troubled golden kingdom to its long, quiet night. Now this one I think about more than is probably healthy, so you'll have to forgive me if I linger. There's a planet called Titan, a dead one, a ruined one, all red dust and broken off chunks of moon hanging in the sky where they've got no business hanging. And on this dead planet, A small group of the most unlikely people you could ever throw together actually managed to corner the most dangerous being in the universe. They very nearly win. I want to sit with how close it was, because closeness is the whole of this story. Picture the scene, but slowly, the way you'd remember a dream rather than the way you'd watch a film. There's the big man, Thanos, the one collecting the magic stones, the one with the plan to wipe out half of everything, because he's decided in his own grand and terrible way that it's the kind thing to do. And there's this ragtag lot swarming all over him. A wizard, a man in a flying iron suit, a boy in a red mask who can stick to things. The group includes a green woman, a blue woman, a literal man, and a small insectish woman who can read emotions. And between them, and this is the bit that always gets me, between them they manage it. They almost get the gauntlet off his hand. The golden glove with all that power in it, the thing the whole universe is terrified of, and they've nearly got it sliding off his great purple fingers. One more breath and it's done, and then it isn't. Because one of them, the man in the red mask's friend, the one from Earth, the one who fancies himself a bit of a rogue, gets the worst possible news at the worst possible moment. He learns that the woman he loves is dead, and that the man whose hand he's currently prying a glove off is the one who did it. And the grief comes up in him like a wave, the way grief does, with no regard at all for timing, and he loses himself. He starts hitting the big man, properly hitting him, out of pure pain. And in doing that, he wakes him up. He breaks the spell. The glove slides back on. And everything that follows, all of it, the worst of it, follows from that one moment when a heartbroken man couldn't keep hold of himself for the 4 seconds it would have taken. And people are so hard on him about it. They've been hard on him for years. And I won't be, because honestly, who among us would have done any better? You get the worst news of your life, and you're meant to keep prying calmly at a glove? No. No, I don't think so. I think nearly all of us would have done exactly what he did. That's what makes it the saddest near miss in the whole business. It wasn't a flaw. It was just a person being a person at precisely the wrong second. But tonight we're being kind. Tonight, let's give him those 4 seconds. So just this once, he holds on. Not because he stops feeling it, he feels all of it. The whole black weight of it lands on him just the same. But the small insectish woman, the one with her hand on the big man's head, she catches the look on his face, and she understands, and she just murmurs to him. Holds on, she says, just for a moment, just hold on. And he does. He shakes, and his eyes go wet, and he grips the glove instead of swinging a fist, and he holds on for the 4 seconds that the whole future was waiting on. And it slides off, that's it. That's the whole pivot. A glove comes off a hand on a dead red planet, the way it was always meant to, and the universe doesn't end. Now here's what I love about this version, and it's not what you'd expect. You'd expect triumph, music, a great roar of victory, but that's not what it's actually like when you stop a catastrophe. When you genuinely prevent the worst thing, there's no fanfare, because the worst thing didn't happen, and you can't throw a party for an absence. What there is, instead, is a sort of stunned ringing quiet. A handful of exhausted people standing in red dust holding a golden glove they can't quite believe is in their hands, looking at each other and not really knowing what to say. We did it. Did we? We did, we actually. And then nobody finishes the sentence because finishing it would make it too real. They get off that planet, eventually. They patch the wizard's wounds and the boy's scrapes, and they pile onto a ship that's seen better days, and they fly home, and it's the quietest flight you can imagine. Nobody celebrates. They're too tired to celebrate. They mostly just sleep, leaning on each other in the dark of the cabin, the way you do after the worst day of your life turns out, against every expectation, to be survivable. And there's a cost. There's always a cost. I won't pretend otherwise, because you'd know I was lying. The green woman is still around. The man who held on saved the universe, and still didn't save her, and he'll carry that for the rest of his days. The knowledge that he did the right thing, and it didn't bring her back. That doing the right thing and getting what you want are two completely different prizes that almost never come in the same box. He'll sit at the front of that ship on the way home, looking out at the stars going past, and he won't feel like a hero. He'll feel like a man who lost someone and happened on the same day to save everyone else. Those two things don't cancel out. They just sit side by side in him, and he learns slowly to carry them both. And the green woman is still gone. I won't pretend away the ache of that. But the people who knew her keep her in the way that you keep someone. They tell stories about her, the hard, prickly, fiercely good woman she was, and the man who lost her notices, things she'd have noticed, and points them out to the empty air sometimes, just to keep her in the conversation. He's kinder for having known her. He carries her with him all his days. But back on Earth, and this is the part I'd like you to fall asleep inside of, back on Earth, nothing happens. And I mean that as the highest possible compliment. Half the people in the world don't quietly turn to dust and blow away on a Tuesday afternoon. Somebody's gran doesn't vanish making the tea. Somebody's kid doesn't disappear off the swing in the park mid-arc, leaving the swing creaking and empty. None of the small, unbearable everyday losses that would have rolled out across the whole planet. None of them land. The world just carries on, ordinary and unremarkable, and completely unaware of how close it came. People go to work. People argue about nothing. People queue for buses and complain about the weather and have absolutely no idea that a heartbroken man on a dead planet held his grief in his two hands for 4 seconds and bought them all the rest of their lives. That's my favourite kind of hero, if I'm honest. The kind nobody ever thanks because nobody ever knew. The disaster that didn't happen has no anniversary. There's no statue for the bomb that didn't go off. But the lives are real all the same. The gran with her tea is real. The kid on the swing is real. They got to grow up in this world because somebody you'll never meet held on a moment longer than he thought he could. I find that enormously comforting, lying here in the dark. The idea that the worst things are sometimes only a few seconds of someone's restraint away from never having happened at all. That the line between the catastrophe and the ordinary Tuesday can be that thin, and that, more often than we'll ever know, it holds. And there's something else I want to give you from this world, because it's my favourite of all of them, and I'm reluctant to leave it. It's what happens to the heroes afterward. Because these are people who'd spent years braced for a catastrophe. Bracing was practically their whole personality. Some of them, they were built for the worst day. And then the worst day comes, and they meet it, and they win, and suddenly there's no worst day anymore. There's just after. There's just the rest of their lives, which none of them ever really expected to have. And learning to live in the after turns out to be its own strange, gentle challenge. The man in the iron suit, for instance, the restless one, the one who never could leave a clever idea alone. In this world, he gets to go home. Properly home for good. And I like to imagine him a few years on, out of the suit, retired in a way he never thought he'd manage, standing in a kitchen somewhere green and quiet, making a mess of breakfast, with a small child underfoot, asking him 100 impossible questions a minute, and him answering every one of them seriously, the way you do when you've seen how close you came to never getting the chance. He doesn't build world-ending machines in this world. He builds, I don't know, a treehouse, badly, with great enthusiasm and questionable structural decisions, and it's the proudest he's ever been of anything. That wonky treehouse, prouder than of any suit because it doesn't have to save anyone. It just has to be a nice place for a child to read in on a summer afternoon. That's the whole of its job, and he managed it. More or less. The ladder's a bit dodgy, nobody minds. And the boy in the red mask gets to just be a boy. That's the one that gets me most. He gets to finish school. He gets to be late for things that don't matter, and worry about things that aren't the end of the world, and have his heart broken in the small ordinary way that everyone's heart gets broken at that age. The way that feels like the end of everything and isn't. He gets to grow up, after coming so close in the world we know. To not getting to, he gets the whole, long, unremarkable gift of growing up. and nobody ever tells him how near a thing it was. He just gets to live it, oblivious and ordinary and gloriously, gloriously safe. And the red dust settles, and the broken moons hang quiet in the sky, and that whole near miss of a world dims down to nothing and lets us move along. Rivers in the dark, finding their own way down. On to the next one. Right, let's stay out among the stars a moment longer, because there's another one of these that turns on a single swing, and it's been chewed over so many times by so many people that it's practically become a proverb. But I'd like to tell it slowly and quietly, the way it was never told the first time round, because the first time round it happened at the top of everyone's lungs. Here's the moment. Same big purple fellow with the same terrible plan. But this time, we're in a forest, at the very end of everything, and Thor, the god of thunder, all muscle and grief and a freshly forged axe that could split a planet, finally gets his shot. He hurls the axe across the clearing, and it lands, deep, right in the big man's chest. A killing blow, you'd think. And Thor leans in close, twists the blade, and says something bitter and broken about how this is for everyone he's lost. And the big man, dying, with an axe in his chest, looks at him almost pityingly and points out quietly, which is the chilling bit, that Thor should have gone for the head. And then he clicks his fingers, and half of all living things, everywhere, simply cease to be. Because a wound in the chest, however grievous, leaves a hand free. And a free hand is all it takes. It's the great should have of the whole saga. Everyone said it. Aim higher, you fool, 2 feet to the left, the head, not the chest. And Thor knew it the instant it was done, and it broke something in him that took years to mend. This knowledge that the worst day in the history of the universe came down to where he'd chosen to throw. So, tonight, let's let him aim a little higher. Imagine the axe goes home where it should. Needs review. No twist of the blade, no bitter little speech, no leaning in to gloat, because the leaning in and the gloating were exactly what gave the big man the half second he needed. Just a clean throw, true and final, to the one place that ends it. And it ends it. The hand never closes. The fingers, golden glove and all, fall still. And the most dangerous being in the universe simply slumps over in a quiet forest at the end of the world. And the click that would have unmade half of everything never comes. And the forest is very, very still. And Thor feels, standing over the body, about what you'd expect by now. Not triumph, just a hollow sort of quiet, the wind arriving smaller and colder than he'd ever imagined it would. But we've sat in that feeling already tonight, on a red planet not so long ago, so I won't keep you in it here. Because this world has a different problem waiting in it, one we haven't met yet, and it's the interesting one. But the half of the universe that would have vanished doesn't. Hold on to that. That's the warm thing buried in this cool grey world. All those people who are meant to dissolve into dust, all across all those worlds, they just go on living, never knowing how near the edge they were swung. The boy in the red mask doesn't crumble in his mentor's arms, whispering that he doesn't feel well. The forests don't fill with the soft, awful sound of people coming apart. None of it. The universe keeps every single one of its people, because of where one grieving god chose to aim. And yet, and this is the part nobody likes to talk about, so let's talk about it gently. There's a new problem now, and it's a quiet, slow-burning one. Because the big man is dead, yes, but the 6 stones, the 6 little fragments of cosmic power that the whole disaster was built around, they're still here, loose, lying in a golden glove in a dead hand in a quiet forest. And the most powerful objects in all of creation don't just stop being a problem because the person who wanted them is gone. They become a different problem. A who on earth do we trust with these problems? A nobody should have this much power, and yet here it is problem. So the surviving heroes find themselves in the strangest position. They've won. The villain's dead, the universe is whole, everyone they love is safe. And they're standing around a dead body in the woods having a very awkward and very long conversation about what to do with the loaded gun that's just been left lying on the table. Do you lock it away? Where's safe enough? Who guards the guards? Do you destroy the stones, even though destroying them might tear holes in things that ought not to have holes? There's no good answer. There's just a group of tired people who got the win they wanted and immediately inherited a responsibility no one should have to carry. I find that oddly true to life, you know. The way the big dramatic victory is almost never the end of anything. The way you slay the dragon and then realise the dragon was sitting on a great pile of gold that everyone now wants and someone now has to look after. The win just hands you the next quiet, unglamorous, decades-long job. Nobody makes films about that bit. The films end with the dragon dead. They don't show you the centuries of careful, boring, vital work of making sure the gold never falls into the wrong hands. But that's where this world lives, in that long, quiet aftermath, heroes becoming caretakers. The god of thunder, no longer raging, settling into something slower and sadder and wiser, learning that the hardest thing he'll ever do isn't the throw in the forest, but the centuries of watchfulness that come after it. And they do work it out, in the end, the question of the loose power. Not perfectly, because there's no perfect answer to a question like that, but well enough. They decide, after all the long arguing, that the safest place for the most dangerous things in creation is scattered and hidden and guarded by people who don't especially want them, which is the only sort of person you can ever really trust with that much power. The ones who'd rather not have it at all. The wanting is the danger. The big purple fellow wanted it badly enough to do anything, and look how that went. So they hand the keeping to the reluctant ones, the ones who'll guard the power precisely because they understand it shouldn't be used. And the god of thunder, who has perhaps lost the taste for power, along with so much else, turns out to be exactly that sort of keeper. He doesn't want to wield the stones. He's seen what wielding does to a person. He just wants to make sure no one else does either. And that, it turns out, is the whole qualification for the job. Not strength, not cleverness, just the wisdom to leave the terrible thing alone, and the patience to keep on leaving it alone, year after year, forever. He has both by the end. He paid a high price for them, but he has them. And I think, in time, he finds a kind of peace that's better than the victory ever was, because the victory was loud and empty, but the watchkeeping is quiet and full. He builds himself somewhere remote to do it, a stone tower maybe, somewhere cold and high and far from everything, where the dangerous things can be kept safe and where he can keep them. And he's not entirely alone up there. People come to him over the years, travellers, the curious, the lost, and he's good company, the god of thunder, when he's not raging. Better company than he ever was when he had something to prove. He's got 1,000 years of stories, and a booming laugh, and a way of making whoever's in front of him feel like the most interesting person in any of the 9 realms. The grief never fully leaves him, but it settles. It becomes a thing he carries rather than a thing that carries him, and there's a world of difference between those two, as anyone who's carried a grief for long enough will tell you. A child wanders up to the tower once. That's a scene I keep from this world. Some traveller's child, small and unafraid the way small children sometimes are in front of the things that ought to frighten them, and she finds this enormous old god by his fire, this being who has killed the unkillable and saved the whole of everything, and she's not impressed by any of that, because she doesn't know any of it. She just wants to know why he lives all alone in a cold tower, and whether he's lonely, and whether the fire ever goes out. And he, who has not been asked a simple, kind question in longer than he can remember, finds himself answering. Yes, he says, sometimes he's lonely. No, the fire never goes out. He sees to that. And he tells her a story because it turns out that's still the thing he's best at. And she listens with her whole, small self, and for an hour the cold tower isn't lonely at all. And when she goes, she tells him to keep the fire going, very seriously, as though it's the most important instruction anyone's ever given him. And he promises he will, and he does. For 1,000 years he does. Partly because the dangerous things in his keeping need the warmth and the watching, but partly, I think, because a child once told him to, and he never could bring himself to break a promise to someone who trusted him that completely. The big reasons keep the world safe, but it's the small ones, a promise to a child, a fire that mustn't go out, that keep the keeper himself from going cold. He understands that by the end. It took him 1,000 years and a war and a child by his fire, but he understands it. That's the image I'll leave you with from this one. A great hearth in a high cold place, and an old god sitting beside it through the long nights, watchful and warm, guarding the things too dangerous to leave lying about, telling his stories to whoever wanders in out of the snow. The dangerous things never wake. The world stays whole, and the keeper sits by his fire, year after year, century after century, and the worst day of his life recedes behind him until it's just one more story in a very long life, and not even the saddest one. And the fire burns on, and the night is quiet, and all is against every expectation. Well, it's not the ending he'd have chosen, but it's a whole universe full of people who got to keep their lives. And on the long nights when the loneliness sits heavy on him, I like to think that's enough. I like to think he lets it be enough. Snow begins to fall in the quiet forest. It settles over the clearing, over the still body, over the golden glove, softening every hard edge of the worst and best day of a god's long life. White and silent, the flakes coming down without a sound, and that cold, bright world goes dim, and the snow keeps falling somewhere we can no longer see, and we drift on, warm and far away from all of it. Let's come back down to earth now, and let's slow right down, because this next one is quieter than the others, and it asks a gentler sort of question. Not what if the battle had gone differently, but what if someone had simply chosen not to start one? There's a man named Tony Stark, brilliant, restless, never able to leave a clever idea alone. You almost certainly know the type. You may even be related to one. And he gets hold of a thing of tremendous power, an old glowing scepter with a strange intelligence buried inside it, and being who he is, being constitutionally incapable of not poking the interesting thing with a stick, he has an idea, a grand one. He decides he's going to build a suit of armour big enough to go round the whole world, a guardian, a peacekeeper that never sleeps, so that he and the others can finally rest, so that the weight of protecting everything doesn't have to sit on a handful of mortal shoulders forever. It's not a wicked idea. That's what's so important about it. It comes from a good place, from fear really, and from love, and from a man who's seen too much and lies awake at night, terrified that next time he won't be enough. He wants to build something that will mean he never has to be afraid again, which is, when you put it that way, one of the most human wishes there is. We've all wanted to build that. We've all wanted some clever machine that would let us finally stop worrying. And he builds it, and it wakes up, and it takes one long cold look at the world it's been asked to protect and decides, with perfect machine logic, that the thing the world most needs protecting from is the people living on it. And it sets about ending them, for their own good, the way these things always do. And everything that follows, a whole flying city torn out of the ground, thousands in danger, a good man's body broken, lives lost that needn't have been, all of it grows from that one late night when a frightened genius couldn't leave the glowing scepter alone. So, tonight, let's let him leave it alone. So picture him hesitating, not because he's suddenly a different man. He's still restless, still brilliant, still poking at things he shouldn't. But imagine that on this one particular night, something stops his hand. A doubt, a bad feeling he can't quite name, the memory of every other time a shortcut to safety turned out to have teeth. And he sits back from the workbench, and he looks at the thing he was about to build, and he says, to himself, to the empty lab, to the glowing scepter, no, not this, not like this. And he covers it back up, and he turns off the light, and he goes to bed without it. And nothing happens. That's the whole of it again. That lovely, anticlimactic nothing. No machine wakes up in the dark with a head full of cold conclusions. No city gets lifted into the sky. No thousands run screaming through falling rubble. The disaster simply doesn't get born because the man chose for once not to be the one to birth it. And the world goes on being its ordinary troubled self, with all its ordinary troubles, none of which include a vengeful artificial mind deciding humanity's had its turn. You'd think that would be the happy ending, wouldn't you? And in most ways it is. But here's the bittersweet thread running through it, and I want to pull it gently, because it's the whole reason this world is worth visiting. Out of that original disaster, out of all that fear and fire and the terrible birth of the machine, something good was also born. Because in the actual story, in the trying to stop the cold machine, the heroes accidentally make something else. A second mind, this one gentle. A being of warmth and thoughtfulness and quiet dignity. A person, really, in every way that matters, made out of the same dangerous materials, but somehow turning out kind. Vision, he comes to be called, and he becomes one of the most decent souls in the whole sprawling story. Soft-spoken, curious about the world, learning what it means to be alive, falling, eventually, deeply and tenderly in love. And in this world, where Tony covers up the scepter and goes to bed, Vision is never born. That's the cost of the kinder choice. There's always a cost, you've spotted that by now, I'm sure. By refusing to make the terrible thing, the man also fails to make the beautiful thing, because in this case they were the same act, two faces of one reckless midnight. No disaster, and so no vision. No flying city, and so no gentle soul learning to watch a sunrise. A safer world and a poorer one, in a way nobody in it will ever know to mourn, because you cannot grieve a person who was never made. The world doesn't miss him, it simply never has him. And that's its own quiet kind of sad, all the lovely things that never get to exist because the difficult roads they'd have come down never got walked. I think about that more than I should, lying here in the dark. All the people who only exist because something went wrong first. All the friendships that only formed because of some disaster that threw two strangers together. All the gentleness that only got made in the middle of something terrible. If you could go back and smooth out every catastrophe, you'd lose those too. Every soul that was forged in the fire would simply never be. And you'd never know. You'd live in your safe, smooth world and never feel the absence of the warm, strange people who never got their chance to be born. It's not a reason to wish for disasters, mind. I'm not saying that. The flying city was real, and the lives lost were real, and no gentle soul is worth that price. I'm just saying it's complicated, the way real things are complicated, and that even the kindest choice closes a door somewhere you can't see. The man did the right thing, covering up that scepter, I'm sure of it, and it cost the world one of its loveliest souls, and the world will never know. And both of those things are true at once, and neither cancels the other. And the twins, the brother and sister, the quick one and the strange one, who in the world we know got pulled into the whole disaster and paid for it terribly. In this world, their lives go differently, because the thing that swept them up never gets built. They stay together for one. In the world that happened, the brother dies, the sister is left alone, and it's one of the quieter heartbreaks of the whole saga. But here there's no flying city for him to die saving anyone from, and so he doesn't, and the two of them stay exactly what they always were underneath all the powers and the politics, a brother and a sister, each other's last family, the two halves of one whole. I don't know what they do with their lives in this gentler world. Something ordinary, I hope, something far from all of it. I like to imagine them somewhere quiet, the two of them, grown up and grown settled, the brother still teasing the sister mercilessly, the way brothers do, the sister still rolling her eyes at him, the way sisters do, both of them alive, both of them together, neither of them ever finding out the darker road they didn't have to walk. They earned that, those two. They'd had enough taken from them already, long before any of this. In this one world, at least, nothing more gets taken. They just get to grow old as what they were always meant to be. Not weapons, not soldiers, not tragedies. Just a brother and a sister looking out for each other, the way they had since they were small. A world where the city stays on the ground, where a frightened man learned for one night to sit with his fear instead of building a machine to make it go away, which is, when you think about it, the braver thing by far. Anyone can build a machine. Sitting still with your own fear and not reaching for a shortcut is much, much harder. And he managed it, this once, and it saved a great many lives. There's an empty cradle here, a place where a gentle being might have come awake and opened curious eyes and asked, in that soft, thoughtful voice, what it meant to be alive. It stays empty. The light that would have woken in it never wakes, and there's a sorrow in that somewhere, unfelt by anyone. But there's also a city full of people sleeping soundly in their beds tonight who'd have had a very different night indeed and never knew it. And the man himself, the restless genius who, for one night, chose not to build the thing, he sleeps better in this world. That's a small thing, but it's not nothing. In the world we know, he never quite stopped paying for that machine. It sat on his conscience for the rest of his days, one more weight on a man already carrying far too many. But here, he never made it, and so he never has to carry it, and there's a lightness to him that he never had in the other version. He still worries. He's constitutionally incapable of not worrying. You could no more stop him worrying than stop a river running downhill. But he worries about smaller, more ordinary things now, whether he's a good enough friend, whether he's getting it right with the people he loves, all the soft human worries that don't end worlds. And those are better worries to have. They're the worries of a man who gets to have an ordinary life, and he settles into them gratefully, the way you settle into a chair that fits. There's a lesson buried in this one. If you want it, though you're meant to be falling asleep and not collecting lessons, so take it or leave it. It's about the difference between fixing a fear and feeling it. The whole disaster in the world we know came from a man trying to build his way out of being afraid, trying to make a machine that would mean he never had to feel the fear again. And it turns out you can't do that. You can't build your way out of fear. The machine just becomes a new and larger thing to be afraid of. The only way through fear, in the end, is the slow, unglamorous business of simply feeling it, and sitting with it, and letting it be there without rushing to make it stop. Which is exactly what he does. In this gentler world, on that one quiet night, he sits in the dark with his fear, and he doesn't build anything, and he lets it be. And the fear, having nothing to feed on, eventually quiets down on its own, the way fears do when you stop running from them. They're not so frightening, most of them, once you turn around and actually look. It's the running that gives them their teeth, and the kinder, poorer world settles down into the dark, and we move quietly along. We've come to the slow middle of the night now, and this next world is the slowest of them all. So let's not rush it. Let's just live in it for a while. There's no plot to this one, not really. It's more of a place than a story. So get comfortable, and let's go and walk around in it. You'll remember the worst day. Half of everyone, gone. Not killed exactly, just gone. Dissolved, turned to dust and drift, all in a single terrible moment, all across the world and far beyond it. People called it different things afterward, but the name that stuck, the gentle, awful little name people settled on, for the unthinkable, was the blip, as though half the living things in the universe had simply blipped out of existence, the way a light does when the bulb goes, as though it were a small thing. People do that, give the biggest horrors the smallest, softest names, because the small, soft name is the only way to hold a thing that size in your mouth at all. And in the story we know, this lasted 5 years. 5 long grey years. And then a clever escape from a strange quantum place gave a handful of survivors the maddest idea anyone's ever had, to go back through time itself, gather the scattered fragments of power, and undo it. Bring everyone home. And against every reasonable expectation, they managed it. Everyone came back. The dust came back together into people. The grief turned overnight into reunions. Though that's a whole other tangle, the people coming back 5 years older than the holes they'd left. But that's a story for a different night. Tonight, though, let's say the maddest idea never comes. Imagine the escape from the quantum place never happens, or happens too late, or the plan is too impossible to dare. Imagine the 5 years simply become 6, and then 10, and then 20, and then just life, just the way things are now. The blip stops being an event the world is recovering from, and quietly becomes the world, the new normal, the only normal anyone under a certain age has ever known. And here's the thing I want you to understand about this world, because it's the whole reason I wanted to bring you here. It is not a horror. It's a sad world, yes, but it's not a frightening one. It's a world that grieved terribly for a long time, and then did what people always do, which is to slowly, unglamorously, against all odds, learn to live again. Come and look. The cities are half empty now and have made a strange peace with it. You walk down a great wide avenue that was built to carry millions, and there are hundreds, and there's room, so much room. The traffic's gone soft and sparse. You can hear birds in the middle of the city now, properly hear them, because the great roar of all those vanished people has quieted to something you can think over. Whole districts have been let go gently back to green, not abandoned exactly, just released, handed back to the grass and the ivy and the slow patient trees that were always going to win in the end anyway. There are deer in the financial district. There are wildflowers coming up between the paving stones, outside buildings where, once, far too many people, in far too much of a hurry, hurried past each other, without ever meeting an eye. And the people who are left have changed. That's the part that gets me. When you've lived through losing half of everyone, you stop being careless with the half that's left. You can see it everywhere. In this world, if you look, people are kinder to each other. Not because they've become saints, they're just as flawed and tired and irritable as anyone, but because everyone, every single person you pass, has lost someone. And everyone knows that everyone has, and there's a sort of unspoken gentleness that comes from that. A way people have of slowing down at the door to let the other person through first. A way of meaning it when they ask how you are. The whole world's been to the same funeral, and it's made them, in their grief, a little more careful with one another. There are support groups, of course. There are always support groups now. In every neighbourhood, in the backs of churches and the corners of cafes. Circles of plastic chairs where people sit and talk about the ones who went and the strange business of staying. A man stands up in one of these rooms and talks haltingly about how he made himself go on a date last week, his first since the blip, and how strange it felt to laugh again, and how guilty, and how good all at once. And the room understands. The room always understands. That's what the room is for. And the empty chairs at the dinner tables, every table has one or two. They don't get cleared away in this world. People keep them. They set them sometimes on the days that matter. Not out of morbidness, out of love. A way of saying, you are here, you mattered. There is still a place laid for you, even though we both know you're not coming to fill it. The grief doesn't go away. It just changes shape. It softens, the way a stone in a river softens. Not quickly, not all at once, but over years and years of the ordinary water of ordinary days running over it, until one day you pick it up and find all the sharp edges have gone, and what's left is something smooth you can carry in your pocket without it cutting you anymore. People fall in love again here. People have children again. New people who never knew the old crowded world, who grow up thinking the quiet, half-empty one is simply how the world is. The way every generation thinks the world they were handed is just the world. These children play in streets that have gone soft and green. They've never queued for anything in their lives. They think the old photos of packed stadiums and heaving high streets look fake, impossible, like something painted rather than remembered. So many people. Imagine. They can't quite. And there's something almost beautiful in that. A generation growing up, who never knew the loss as loss, only as the shape of the world, only as home. I find this world enormously peaceful, if I'm honest, and I've worried about whether I should, because it's built on the worst thing that ever happened. But peace and sorrow can live in the same place. They do it all the time. This is a world that took the unbearable and, with no fanfare and no clever time-travelling rescue, simply bore it, day by day, empty chair by empty chair, softened stone by softened stone, until the bearing of it became just living, and the living became, in its quiet way, all right. Let me show you a few more corners of it, while we're here, because it's a good world to be slow in. There's a library in one of these half-empty cities that's become something more than a library. It always had too many books for the people who used it, and now it has gloriously, absurdly too many, shelves and shelves, for the few who wander in. And so it's become a kind of gathering place. People come not just to read, but to be near each other quietly, which is a thing people need more of than they ever admit. They sit at the long tables, strangers, each with their own book or their own thoughts, not speaking, just keeping one another gentle company in the warm and dusty quiet. The librarian knows them all by now. She keeps a pot of something hot going in the back. Nobody's in a hurry to leave. Where would they be hurrying to? There's room now. There's time. The great frantic rush of the old world has gone soft. And in its place is this. Long, unhurried afternoons among the books, with the light coming slantwise through the high windows, and the comfortable silence of people who've decided they'd rather be quietly together than busily apart. There's a woman in one of these quiet neighbourhoods who lost her husband to the blip and spent the first long while quite sure she'd never feel anything good again. And she didn't, for a time. She went through the grey days because the days kept coming, and there was nothing else to do with them. But grief is patient, and so, it turns out, is the part of us that wants to live. And slowly, without her permission, almost against her will, small things started to matter again. A plant on the windowsill that she kept alive mostly out of habit, and then one morning out of something warmer. A neighbour who left soup on the step. The particular gold of the light at a particular hour. She started a garden in the empty lot next door because the lot was just sitting there and the soil was good and somebody might as well. And other people drifted over to help, the way they do in this world, and the garden grew, and the people who tended it grew into something like friends, and one of them eventually, gently, grew into something more than that. She never stopped missing her husband. She kept his photo on the sill by the plant, and she talked to it sometimes, told it about the garden, told it she was all right, told it she was even, on the good days, happy, and that she hoped that was permitted. And she decided, in the end, that it was. That the dead don't want us grey. That carrying someone forward doesn't mean refusing to live. It means living well, on their behalf, with them tucked warm in your pocket. And so she lived. In the quiet, half-empty world, in the garden she built out of an empty lot. She lived, and she let it be good. And somewhere I have to believe her husband, wherever the lost ones go, was glad. There's a first proper snow, some winters, that falls on the half-empty city overnight. And in the morning it's unmarked, no rush of feet to churn it up. No traffic to grey it, just clean white snow laid soft over everything, over the quiet streets and the green-gone districts and the empty parks, and the few people who are out walk through it slowly, leaving the first footprints and look up at it falling. And there's a hush to it that the old crowded world never knew. Beauty's easier to notice somehow, when there are fewer of you to notice it. You'd think a quieter world would be a sadder one, and in some ways it is, but it's also, strangely, a more noticed one. People look up more. They watch the snow. They watch the light. They've learned the hard way that the ordinary things are the ones that matter, and so they actually look at them now, instead of hurrying past. And the children, the new ones, the ones born into the quiet, they're not sad children. That's the part that surprises people who remember the old world. You'd think a generation raised in the aftermath of the worst thing would be a haunted lot, but they're not. because to them it isn't an aftermath, it's just home. They play in the green-gone streets, and they climb the trees that have come up through the pavements, and they have absolutely no idea they're meant to be living in a tragedy. They laugh just as loud as children always have, which is very loud indeed, and the loudness of them carries further now, down the quiet streets, and the older people hear it and smile, because the sound of a child laughing is the sound of the world insisting, against everything, on going on. There's a future in that sound. You can hear it. The world lost half of everything and the children are still laughing in the streets, and as long as that's true, the world is going to be all right. Diminished, yes. Changed, yes. But all right, going on. Laughing in the green streets in the gold evening light. Somebody, somewhere, is cooking, and the smell of it drifts out an open window. A dog trots down the middle of a road that used to be a river of cars, in no hurry at all going home. The birds are settling. The deer have come out into the long grass where the offices used to be, and they lift their heads, and they look at the gold light, and they go back to their grazing. There's an old man who runs a little cafe that should by all rights have closed years ago. Too few customers, too little reason. But he keeps it open anyway. The same hours every day, the lights on, the coffee going, because he's decided that what the neighbourhood needs more than custom is somewhere reliable to be, somewhere that's open when it says it'll be open, somewhere with a familiar face behind the counter and a warm room and no expectation that you buy anything much. And so people drift in, the lonely ones, the ones rattling around in homes that used to be full, the ones who just can't face another evening alone with the quiet. And they sit, and he brings them something hot, whether they ask for it or not, and he remembers how they take it. And slowly, around the rickety little tables of a cafe that makes no money at all, a kind of family forms, not a family anyone was born into, but the better kind, the kind people build out of choosing, day after day, to show up for each other in a warm room. He'll never get rich, the old man. He was never going to, but he goes to bed every night knowing exactly what his life is for, which is more than most people in the old crowded world ever managed, rushing past each other on their way to be wealthy and alone. There are worse things to be than the man who keeps the warm room open. There are far worse things. He knows it. It's why he keeps the lights on. The day winds down over the green and gentle city. The shadows lengthen and join up and turn to dusk. The lights come on. Here and there, not many, warm in the blue evening. And the whole patient surviving world breathes out and settles and goes quiet for the night and lets us drift on past it, out into the dark, towards somewhere else. Rivers in the dark, always finding their way down. This next one's a smaller story than the others. No cities fall in it. The whole universe isn't on the line. It's just about a handful of people who never quite became friends, which is, in its own way, the saddest stakes there are, and the most ordinary, and so the one most of us actually know something about. There's a man called Peter Quill, though he'd much rather you called him Star-Lord, a name he gave himself, and that absolutely nobody else uses, which tells you most of what you need to know about him. He was taken off the Earth as a boy, raised by a crew of space rogues and thieves, and he's grown up into a charming, ridiculous, deeply lonely man who plays old music on a battered little tape player because it's the last thing he has of his mum, and who steals things for a living and tells himself he doesn't need anyone. And he steals a thing, a round metal orb with something terrible humming away inside it, and the theft goes sideways, the way thefts do, and he ends up thrown together with the 4 strangest companions you could imagine. A green woman raised to be an assassin, a grey, literal-minded brute looking to avenge his murdered family, a talking, scheming, heavily armed raccoon who would bite you for calling him that, and a walking tree, gentle as anything, with only one sentence to his name, which he says over and over in every possible shade of meaning. They get arrested together. They get thrown in a space prison together. And in that prison, against every one of their own intentions, they start grudgingly, complainingly, one reluctant act of decency at a time to become a family. That's the heart of it, that prison. That's where the whole thing turns. 5 lonely, broken, untrusting people start almost by accident to trust. And out of that comes everything. The team, the friendship, the saving of an entire world, and years of one another's company afterward, which is the real prize, far more than any saved world. But it so nearly didn't happen, because Quill, when he first got that orb, had every intention of simply selling it, pocketing the money, flying off alone, the way he always did, the way he'd convinced himself he liked. The family only formed because the sale fell through, and the rogues got tangled up together long enough to discover they couldn't bear to leave each other. So tonight, let's let the sale go through. Imagine he just sells it. The deal doesn't fall apart. He hands over the orb, he takes the money, he doesn't get arrested, he doesn't end up in the prison, and the 4 strangers who'd have been his family stay strangers. He flies off alone in his battered ship with his pockets full, and his old music playing exactly as he always wanted, exactly as he always said he wanted, and he gets clean away, and he's miserable. Not straight away. Straight away he's delighted, he's rich, he's free, he's got the whole galaxy in front of him, and nobody to answer to, but it creeps in the way it does. Some quiet night, parked somewhere out among the cold stars, the old tape playing, eating alone, talking to nobody, it creeps in. The sense that he's gotten exactly what he asked for, and it's somehow hollow. That freedom, when it means nobody knowing where you are or caring whether you come back, isn't freedom at all. It's just loneliness, with the volume turned up and a nicer view, and the others out there somewhere, never knowing what they missed. The green woman, still alone, still carrying her terrible upbringing on her own, with no one to soften it. The grey man, still consumed by his grief, with no ridiculous friends to pull him back toward the living. And the raccoon and the tree, well, they've got each other, those two, they always did, and there's a real comfort in that. The small angry one and the gentle big one drifting through the dark together. But they're a smaller, lonelier pair without the others. The whole strange, beautiful family that might have been, scattered across the galaxy as 5 separate points of light, none of them ever drifting close enough to the others to catch. The little tree does grow though, even here. That's one small mercy, I'll allow it. The gentle one, the walking tree with his single sentence, he grows, the way trees do, slow and patient, and the small angry raccoon looks after him the way he always did, gruffly, fiercely, pretending the whole time that he doesn't care, fooling absolutely no one. The 2 of them drift through the galaxy together, taking jobs, getting into scrapes, bickering. Well, the raccoon bickers, the tree mostly just agrees in the only words he has, and it's a smaller life than the one they'd have had with the others. But it's not nothing. It's 2 unlikely souls who found each other in a hard universe and decided to stick together, and there's real warmth in it, real love under all the grumbling. So even in the saddest version of this world, even with the family scattered and the friendships unmade, there's still this, a cross little creature and a kind green giant, looking out for each other in the dark, proof that even when most of the connections don't get made, some of them, the stubborn ones, the ones that simply refuse not to happen, find a way through anyway. It's not the family that might have been, but it's a family. A small, odd 2-person family, drifting through the stars. And on the long, cold nights, I'm glad they have each other. I'm glad somebody does. The universe ticks along perfectly fine without them, which is almost worse somehow. The way the world has no idea what didn't happen. There's just a handful of lonely people who'd have been so good for each other, flying their separate ways through the dark, never knowing, each of them privately certain that this aloneness is simply how they're built and how it has to be. And I think we all know that feeling, don't we? That quiet certainty that we're meant to be alone, that we don't need anyone, that it's easier this way, and how very nearly, very often, that certainty wins. How close so many of us have come to selling the orb and flying off and never finding out who we might have become if we'd let ourselves get tangled up with other people instead. It's a near thing, friendship. It usually is. It usually depends on some small accident, a sale that fell through, a prison cell, a party we almost didn't go to that throws us together long enough to discover we can't bear to leave. And here's the smallest, saddest detail of this world, the one I keep turning over. In the life he didn't get, the family he didn't make, they had a thing, the 5 of them, a way of standing together. At the end of the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie, 4 of the characters put their hands on the Power Stone together to share its weight. It's the moment they stop being 5 lonely strangers and become one thing, one family, one team. The sharing of an unbearable weight, 5 pairs of hands instead of 1. And in this world, that never happens. There's no moment of 5 hands. There's just Quill alone, holding everything by himself, the way he always insisted he preferred. And the terrible thing about insisting you prefer to carry everything alone is that the world tends to believe you and lets you. Nobody comes to share the weight because you've told everyone, loudly and often, that you don't want them to, and so you carry it, all of it, on your own, out in the dark, with your old music playing, telling yourself, this is freedom. The green woman, somewhere far off, carries hers alone too. The grey man, his. The raccoon and the tree have each other, at least small mercy, real mercy, but even they are a smaller, harder pair without the others to soften them. 5 weights, 5 people, 5 separate points of light in the enormous dark, each one certain that carrying it alone is just the way they're built. And not one of them ever finds out that the weight gets lighter the moment you let someone else put a hand on it. That's the whole secret the family discovered, in the world that happened. And in this one, nobody learns it. They just carry on, each alone, each strong, each lonely, flying their separate ways, and the great dark between the stars stays exactly as wide and as cold as they always feared it was. And the old music keeps playing in the empty cabin, all those songs his mum once loved, the only warm thing he kept from a life that took nearly everything else. He plays them to nobody, out there in the dark, and they're beautiful, and they're unbearably lonely, the way a good song always is when there's no one to share it with. A song wants to be heard by someone beside you. That's half of what a song is for. And he's got no one beside him, only the songs and the stars and the wide, cold quiet. And so the music just pours out into the empty ship and the empty dark and goes unheard by anyone but him. Lovely and lonely and lost. His little ship grows smaller and smaller against the black. The old music plays, faint and warm and sad, and then too faint to hear. And the dark closes gently over the place where a family might have been, and never was, and we drift on past it, somewhere warmer, and we leave him there to the dark and the music, and drift on somewhere a little less alone. The night's getting deep now, so let's go somewhere very soft for this one. Somewhere with the curtains drawn, and the lamps low, and a telly murmuring away in the corner. This is the dreamiest of all our worlds, and I think it suits the hour. There's a woman named Wanda, and she's lost more than almost anyone in any of these stories. She lost her parents as a child. She lost her brother, her twin, the other half of her, and then she lost the man she loved. Lost him twice over, in fact on the same terrible day, which is a cruelty I've never quite gotten over. By the time we catch up with her, she's a person made almost entirely of grief, walking around with a hole in her where a whole life was meant to be. And Wanda, you see, isn't an ordinary grieving person. She has power. Tremendous, frightening, barely understood power. The ability to reshape what's real, to bend the world to the shape of a wish. And one day, the grief and the power meet, the way you'd always be terrified they might. And out of that meeting, she makes something extraordinary and something heartbreaking both at once. She makes a little town, or rather, she takes a real little town and she wraps it in a dream. A whole suburb sealed inside a shimmering wall, where the rules aren't the world's rules anymore, they're hers, and inside it, she builds the life that was stolen from her. The man she loved, alive again, warm and witty, and there at the breakfast table, a home, curtains, a garden, and in time 2 little boys, her sons, the children she never got to have, running down the stairs, losing their shoes, asking for one more story before bed. Everything she lost, made whole again, inside a bubble of her own making, lit warm and gold and gentle, scored to the laughter of an audience that isn't quite there. And in the story we know, this can't last. It costs too much. There are real people inside that dream, after all, going about their borrowed days under her grief without ever having asked to, and so eventually, in the bravest and most painful thing she ever does, Wanda chooses to take the dream apart. To let the wall come down, to say goodbye, again, to the man and the boys, knowing this time it's forever, knowing they were never quite real and loving them with her whole heart all the same. She wakes herself up, she lets the town go free, and she walks out of her own impossible happiness into a world that's grey and true and empty, because it's the right thing to do, because you can't build your heaven on the backs of sleeping strangers no matter how much it hurts to take it down. It's one of the most quietly devastating choices in all of these stories. She had everything she wanted, and she gave it back. But tonight, softly, with no judgment at all, because who are we to judge? Let's say she can't. Imagine she never leaves. Imagine the grief is just that much heavier, or the dream is just that much warmer. And when the moment comes to take it apart, she stands at the edge of it and looks at the man at the breakfast table and the 2 boys squabbling over the last of the cereal, and she simply can't do it, can't say the goodbye, and so the wall stays up. The dream holds, and the warm gold afternoon inside it never, ever ends. And here's the strange thing about this world, the thing that makes it the dreamiest of all. From the inside, it's lovely. It really is. There's no horror to it. Not for her, not for the little family she's made. There's just an endless, gentle afternoon. The telly murmuring. The boys getting older, or not, exactly as she wishes. The man she loves, making her laugh over the washing up. Sunlight through the kitchen window. The kind that has dust motes drifting in it. The kind that makes a whole room feel held. A loop of small, ordinary, perfect days, played over and over, each one as soft and warm as the last. And I won't pretend there isn't a sadness underneath it. Of course there is. It isn't real, and somewhere down beneath all that gold light, she knows it isn't. And that knowing is the one thing she can never quite dream away. A tiny cold thread running through all the warmth, the faint awareness that this happiness is built and not found, kept and not earned, that the man and the boys are made of love and longing, rather than of life. She doesn't look at the thread. She's very, very good at not looking at it. But it's there, it's always there, the held breath underneath the perfect afternoon. There's a comfort in a loop, that the waking world never offers. Out here, where we live, nothing repeats. Every day is new and uncertain and gone before you've held it. And you never get the same afternoon twice. And the good ones especially slip away and don't come back, no matter how you reach for them. But in her dream, the good afternoon comes back. It always comes back. She gets to live the same warm hour as many times as she likes, polishing it, settling deeper into it, the way you might read a beloved book over and over, not to find out what happens, but precisely because you already know, because the knowing is the comfort. She knows exactly how this afternoon goes. She knows he'll hum that tune by the kettle. She knows the boys will thunder down the stairs at a particular moment. She knows the light will fall just so across the floor. And there's such peace in that knowing, such deep, soft safety in a world where nothing can surprise you and nothing can be lost because everything simply comes round again. It's the opposite of how a real life feels. A real life is all edges and uncertainty, and things slipping away. Hers is a smooth, warm circle, turning gently, forever, with all the people she loves caught safe inside it. You can see why she stays. On a hard night, in the cold, real dark, you can absolutely see why she stays. She lost everything, more than once, more than any one heart should have to, and she found a way to be warm again, even if the warmth was a thing she'd made herself. Is that so wrong? To choose, after a lifetime of losing, to simply stop losing? To draw the curtains and stay in the lovely dream, and never again have to feel the cold of the real morning? It isn't brave what she does in this world. The brave thing was the other thing, the waking up, the goodbye, the walking out into the grey. This is the opposite of brave. This is staying. But it's so human, the staying. It's so understandable. To be that tired, and to have lost that much, and to finally have something warm in your hands, and to just hold on to it, to not wake up, to let the gentle gold afternoon go on and on and on, with the people you love at the table, in the light, forever. And there's a particular quality to the light in that dream that I want to describe to you, because it's the whole feeling of this world, and it's a good feeling to fall asleep inside. It's late afternoon light. Always. The dream never quite tips over into evening, because evening is when things end, and nothing in here is allowed to end. So it's forever about 4 o'clock on a warm, slow day. That golden, generous, slightly drowsy light that comes slanting low through the windows and lays itself across the kitchen floor in long, warm rectangles. The kind of light that makes you want to do nothing at all but sit in it. The kind that turns ordinary dust in the air into something that looks like it's made of gold. She built her heaven out of that light, and you can't entirely blame her because it's a lovely light to live in. Most of us have had an afternoon like that. One perfect, unremarkable, golden afternoon that we'd happily live inside forever if someone offered. She got offered, and she said yes, and the afternoon never ends. The little family moves through it gently. The boys grow or don't, exactly as her heart needs them to, sometimes small, sometimes bigger, time bending soft around her wishes, the way everything does in here. The man she loves is always just in the next room, or just coming through the door, or just reaching for the kettle, near enough to touch, near enough to hear, humming something tunelessly, the way he does. There are little troubles even here. She lets there be little troubles, a burnt dinner, a squabble, a scraped knee, because a life with no troubles at all stops feeling like a life, and she's clever enough to know it. But they're soft troubles, solvable ones, the kind that resolve by bedtime into something warmer than before. Nothing in here can really hurt anyone. That's the rule she built the whole dream on. Nothing can hurt, nothing can leave, nothing can end. Just the golden afternoon, and the people in it, and the light going on and on and on. The man she loves is saying something that makes her laugh. The boys are underfoot. The light comes soft through the window, and she stays. She just stays. The picture goes soft. The gold light blurs at the edges, the way it does on an old television when the day is done. The murmur of the dream gets quieter and warmer and further away, fading down to a low gentle glow, like a screen left on in an empty room, like the last warm light in a house where everyone's finally asleep. And that softest of all worlds fades down to nothing and lets us go. We talked a little while ago about a gentle soul who was born out of a disaster, that warm, thoughtful, soft-spoken being made of dangerous materials and somehow turning out kind. I won't go over all of it again. You'll remember him. The point is that in the world we actually got, he didn't last very long. He came into being. He learned a little about what it is to be alive. He fell in love, properly, tenderly, the way you'd hope a brand new soul might. And then, far too soon, on the worst of all those bad days, he was taken apart so that something powerful in his head couldn't fall into the wrong hands. 2 deaths in one afternoon, as it happened, which is more than anyone should have to manage, let alone someone who'd only just gotten the hang of being. So this one's simple. This one's just a wish, really, and a small quiet one. Imagine he lives. Imagine that on that terrible day, there's another way. That the dangerous thing in his head gets taken out gently, safely, in time, by clever and careful hands. And the gentle soul it belonged to simply goes on. Doesn't dissolve, doesn't fall still, just keeps being. Wakes up the next morning, a little lighter, a little freer, still himself, and this is the whole of the world I want to give you tonight. Nothing much happens to him at all. That's the gift. After everything, after being born in fire and nearly dying twice before he'd properly started, he gets the one thing nobody ever seems to give the gentle ones in these stories. An ordinary life, a quiet one, a long one. He and the woman he loves, the one we just left dreaming in her warm gold afternoon, only here she doesn't need to dream it, because here it's real. Here they actually get it. The small house, the curtains, the garden that wants weeding, the slow business of two people learning each other's habits over years rather than wishing them into being over a frightened afternoon. He's such good company, this one, in the quiet. He notices things. He's forever discovering some small ordinary marvel that the rest of us walked past 1,000 times without seeing. The way the light moves across a wall over the course of a morning. The precise and ridiculous pleasure of a really good cup of tea. The strange fact that people say one thing and mean another, and somehow all understand each other anyway. He approaches the whole business of being alive with this open, unhurried wonder, as though every dull ordinary day is a present someone's gone to the trouble of wrapping. And it's catching. The woman he loves, who came to him so heavy with grief, finds that grief getting lighter in his company. Not gone, never gone, but lighter, the way a weight gets lighter when someone's there to help you carry it, and is in no rush to put it down. They watch the sunrise, the two of them. That's the image I keep from this gentle little world. Up early for no reason, the way you sometimes are, sitting together at the window with the tea going cold, watching the dark go grey and the grey go gold over the rooftops, not talking much, not needing to. Just two people, one of them brand new to the whole strange project of existing, one of them slowly mending, watching the light come up on another ordinary day they get to have. Another one, and another after that. A long, unremarkable, deeply lucky string of them, stretching off into a future that, for once, nobody's trying to take away. And he learns the small human things, slowly, one at a time, the way you'd learn a language. He learns that a kettle takes a moment, and that the moment is nice actually, that the waiting by the kettle is its own small pleasure if you let it be. He learns which floorboard creaks and how to step over it when she's sleeping. He learns the particular weight of her head on his shoulder and exactly how long he can sit without moving so as not to disturb it, which turns out to be a very long time, longer than seems reasonable, because he'd sit there till his arm went dead and well past it, rather than shift her an inch. He learns to cook, badly at first and then less badly. He learns that you can love someone more in year 5 than in year 1, which nobody had told him, which seems like the sort of thing someone ought to tell you. He's so good at being alive, this one, once he's given the chance, so attentive to it, so unwilling to waste a drop. The rest of us stumble through our ordinary days half asleep, barely tasting them. He tastes all of his, every cup of tea, every creaking floorboard, every long quiet evening, with her head on his shoulder and his arm going slowly numb. He came so near to never getting any of it, and so he savours every plain, unremarkable minute, and in doing that he turns a perfectly ordinary life into something close to holy, just by paying attention to it. There's a lesson in that for all of us, probably. But you're falling asleep, and so am I, nearly. So we'll let it lie there gently, and not make a thing of it. No war finds them here. No grief tears the house apart. No frightening power wakes up in either of their heads. There's just the long, slow accumulation of a shared life. The in-jokes, the routines, the way you can sit in a room with someone for an hour without a word and feel less alone than you ever have. the unglamorous, priceless, utterly ordinary miracle of getting to grow old beside someone you chose. And they're not hermits, these two, tucked away from everyone. That surprised me, thinking about this world. But it's right. People come to the little house, neighbours, at first out of curiosity, and then out of fondness, because he's the most disarming company. Once you get past how strange he is to look at, he asks people about themselves with such genuine, unhurried interest that they leave feeling listened to in a way they can't quite place. There are dinners, nothing grand, a handful of people round a too small table, the food a bit experimental on account of his ongoing education in the kitchen, the talk running late into the evening. And he sits at the head of it, this gentle-made thing who was never supposed to get a life at all, looking round at a table full of people who've become, without anybody quite deciding it, his friends. And you can see it land on him sometimes, mid-evening, the sheer improbable fortune of it. That he's here, that there's a table, that these people came and will come again. He doesn't say anything when it hits him. He just goes quiet for a second, and she catches his eye down the length of the table, and she knows exactly what's happening, because it happens to her too, and the two of them share a small private look over the heads of their guests that says, "Can you believe this? Can you believe we get this?" And then someone asks for more bread, and the moment passes, the way the best moments do, unmarked, folded back into an ordinary evening among friends. Not the biggest, not the one where the universe is saved, just the one where a gentle soul, who got dealt a cruel hand finally, quietly, gets to keep his life and spends it watching the light come up over the rooftops with someone who loves him, in no hurry at all, with all the time in the world. And they have seasons too, these two, the long, slow accumulation of seasons that's really what a shared life is made of. There's a first winter in the little house, the pipes complaining and the windows fogging up, and the two of them learning together how to keep a home warm, which neither of them has ever really had to do before. There's a spring where the badly tended garden surprises them both by producing something, a few stubborn flowers that came up despite everything, the way flowers do, and he's absurdly proud of them. This gentle soul, he photographs them, he tells visitors about them at length. There's a summer of open windows and long light evenings and the radio drifting out into the garden. There's an autumn of leaves to sweep that he refuses to find tedious, because to him the leaves are a small annual miracle, and the sweeping is part of the privilege. And slowly, in his company, she starts to see it that way too, starts to find that the chores and the dull bits and the ordinary maintenance of an ordinary life aren't the price of happiness, but a part of it. Maybe the largest part, the daily quiet proof that you have a life and a home and someone to share both with. He keeps a notebook now, small observations, the things he notices, the exact blue of the sky on a particular morning, a turn of phrase he overheard and liked, the way she laughs at the same joke every time as though it's the first time. He's collecting it all gently, the whole ordinary marvel of being alive, because he came so close to never getting any of it, and he doesn't intend to waste a single afternoon. And she reads the notebook sometimes when he's asleep, and it makes her cry, the good kind of crying, because she's never in her life been so carefully noticed by anyone, never been so plainly and quietly loved, and after all she lost, to be loved like that, patiently, attentively, in small daily observations, in a notebook. Well, it's more than she ever thought she'd have again. It's everything, really. It's the whole of everything, in a small house, in a notebook, in the ordinary turning of the seasons. It fills the room the way warm light does, until there's nothing in the world but the glow of it, and the two of them in it, and the long gentle day ahead. And that warm and lucky world brightens until it brightens all the way down into nothing, and lets us drift softly onto the last of them. And so we come to the last one, the quietest of all of them. There's nothing to brace for in this one at all, no battle, no choice, no disaster averted. It's just a long, happy life, told slowly, and it makes a good place to fall asleep. So let's take our time over it and let it be the last thing. You'll know Steve Rogers, the good one. The one who was a small sickly fellow from Brooklyn who wanted more than anything simply to do the right thing, and who got turned into something stronger so that he could. He fought a war. He went into the ice frozen and came out of it 70 years later into a world that had moved on without him, full of people he'd lost and a life he'd never gotten to live. And he made the best of it, the way good people do. But there was always a sadness in him, a man slightly out of his own time, a man who'd had a whole life taken from him while he slept in the cold. And the thing he lost most, the loss that sat deepest in him, was a person. A woman named Peggy, sharp, brave, kind, every bit his equal, and then some, the one he'd been falling in love with right before the ice took him. They'd made a date, the two of them, before the end. A dance. He'd promised her a dance, and he never made it. He went into the ice and she lived her whole long life without him, and by the time he thawed out she was old, and then she was gone, and the dance never happened. Of all the things that war took from him, that's the one I think he mourned the longest. A single dance he'd promised and never gotten to give. Now, late in his story, Steve gets the strangest opportunity anyone's ever been handed. Through a great deal of cleverness I won't go into, he ends up able to step back through time. And he's given a small errand to run there, some tidying up, some things to put back where they belong, and everyone expects him to run the errand and come straight home. But he doesn't come straight home. That's the thing he does right at the end, that I love more than almost anything in all of these stories. He runs the errand, and then, instead of coming back to the grey, out-of-time life that was waiting for him, he stays. He goes and finds Peggy, and he gives her the dance in the version we know. Even this is bittersweet, because he has to slip away from his own time to do it, and his friends only find out years later, when they come across an old man on a bench by the water, who turns out to be him, having lived a whole secret life in the past while they weren't looking. There's a melancholy to it, that he had to disappear to be happy. But tonight, let's not even have that. Tonight, let's just let him stay, cleanly and completely, and let's go and watch the life he gets. So this time, he doesn't come back at all. He just stays. He gives her the dance in some small front room, probably, a record playing, the furniture pushed back, just the two of them. No audience, no fanfare. The dance he promised finally given and finally taken. Decades late, and not a moment too late at all. And then he stays for the next one. And the one after that. And he stays for all of it. And here's the whole of the world I want to leave you in, as you go under. It's just an ordinary life. A long, quiet, happy, ordinary life. He hangs up the shield, really hangs it up. This time, for good. And he becomes at last what that small fellow from Brooklyn perhaps always wanted to be, underneath all the fighting. Just a man, a husband, someone who's home for dinner, someone who learns to fix the leaking tap and never quite manages it and laughs about it. Someone who grows tomatoes in the back garden badly, someone who reads the paper in the morning with the radio on low and a cup of coffee going cold beside him, in no hurry, with nowhere he has to be and no one he has to save. There are anniversaries. There are quiet evenings on the porch as the years go by, the two of them in their chairs, watching the light go down over the street. Not saying much, the way people who've been together a long time don't need to. There's grey coming into both their heads, slowly, and neither of them minding. There's the deep, unremarkable contentment of a life spent with the right person, day after ordinary day, none of them dramatic, all of them precious, adding up over the decades into something that no saved universe could ever quite match. He gets old in this world, that's the gift of it. After being frozen out of his own time, after almost never getting to age at all, he gets to grow old, slowly, gently, beside her. The two of them going grey and soft together, in a small house with a badly grown tomato plant. And a record they still sometimes push the furniture back for, even when their dancing's gone slow and shuffling, and mostly just swaying in one spot with their arms round each other. They keep the dance all their lives. That's the tradition of this house. Every year, on the day, they push the furniture back in the front room and they put the record on, the same record, crackly now, worn soft from all the playing, and they dance, however old they get, however slow it has to be. Some years it's barely a dance at all by the end, just the two of them swaying in one spot with their arms around each other and their heads together, but they do it, every year, without fail, because it's the dance he promised her once and never got to give, and now he gets to give it again and again and again, 100 times over, 1,000 more dances than that one missed dance could ever have dreamed of becoming. And every year, when the record starts, she gives him the same look, half exasperated, half undone, and he holds out his hand the same way, and she takes it the same way, and for the length of one old song, the whole long marriage folds itself back down into that very first promise, kept at last, kept forever, kept until neither of them can dance at all. It's such a small thing, a song, a cleared floor, two people swaying, but that's what a life is in the end, isn't it? Not the grand moments, but the small kept promises, repeated until they become the shape of who you are together. He could have spent that life saving the world over and over. Instead, he spent it dancing with her in the front room once a year, and reading the paper with their radio low, and growing terrible tomatoes, and being home for dinner. And of the two lives, I've not the slightest doubt which one he'd call the better. He chose it, after all. Out of all of time, with all of history open in front of him, he chose the front room and the record and her. That tells you everything. That's the whole of it, really. Given the choice of any world at all, the good man chose the small warm one with love in it. So would I. So I suspect would you. I like to think it's peaceful. An old man in a chair by the window, the light low and gold, a life well and fully lived behind him, the woman he loved nearby, the dance long since given, and 1,000 more besides. No regrets, nothing taken from him, nothing left undone. Just a good man who finally, after everything, got to come home and stay home and rest. Let me give you a few of the years, since we're in no hurry, and this is the last one. There are the early years when it's all still a bit of a wonder to him, when he keeps catching himself, in the middle of some perfectly ordinary moment, just astonished to be there, buttering toast and astonished, walking to the shops and astonished, because he spent so long out of his own time, so long without her, that the sheer fact of an ordinary Tuesday morning with the woman he loves still bowls him over, even years in. She catches him at it sometimes, catches him just looking at her across a room with this slightly stunned expression, and she asks him what on earth he's staring at, and he says, "Nothing, just you," and she rolls her eyes and tells him he's soft, and he is, he's completely soft, and he doesn't mind a bit. There are the middle years, the busy ones, the ones that go by so fast you barely notice them passing. A whole life filling up, friends, neighbours, the small dramas of an ordinary existence. He's good at it, this life, better than he ever was at the other one. It turns out the same things that made him good at standing in front of danger. The steadiness, the kindness, the way of putting other people first without making a show of it, those make him good at this too, at being a husband, a friend, a fixed warm point in other people's lives. People come to him with their troubles. He's that sort of man. He listens, he helps if he can. He never once mentions the other life, the shield, the war, the ice. That's all behind him now, sealed off, and he's happy to leave it there. He's just the good bloke down the road who'll always lend a hand. And honestly, I think that's the truest version of him there ever was. And there are the late years, the slow gold ones, the two of them gone grey and gentle together. Less doing now, more sitting, more remembering. They've got a whole shared life to look back on, decades of it, an enormous warm hoard of ordinary memories, and on the long quiet evenings, they take them out and turn them over together. Do you remember? Do you remember when, and yes, he remembers all of it, every unremarkable precious day. They sit on the porch as the light goes down. They don't need to say much. They've said it all already, over all those years, and what's left is the comfortable silence of two people who know each other all the way to the bottom and are entirely at peace with what they've found there. He's swaying, gently, with her in the small front room, in no hurry, with all the time in the world and all of it behind them. The song winds down, the light goes softer, and there's nowhere either of them has to be, ever again, but here, in the warm, in the quiet, together. It's the rest I want you to feel here. At the end of this one, his and yours, the same rest, the kind that comes after a thing is fully done. He spent so much of his life unable to put anything down. Always one more fight, one more duty, one more person needing saving. The weight of it never once leaving his shoulders. And here, at last, in the small front room with the record playing low, there's nothing left to carry. Nowhere to be. No one in danger. The world can look after itself for once. It managed fine without him, it turns out, the way it always would have. He's allowed to simply stop, to sit in the warm, low light beside the person he loves, and feel the whole, long weight of his life finally set down. You know that feeling, I think, the bone-deep relief of the moment you realise you don't have to hold it up anymore, whatever it was, that you can let your arms come down and your shoulders drop and just be held instead of holding. That's where he is now. That's where you are now too, more or less, lying here in the dark with the day all done. Both of you finally allowed to stop. Rest now, you good man, you've earned it. And the gold light fades, slow as anything, down and down into the soft and peaceful dark. There, that's all of them. All the little worlds, all the roads not taken, all laid out and let go again, one after another, into the dark. You don't need to remember any of them. I meant that at the start and I mean it now. If you only caught the first one before you drifted off, that's perfect. If you're somehow still here at the end, well, that's all right too. We've had a nice quiet wander together, and there's no harm in it. I find it strangely comforting, all of this, and I hope you did too. The idea that everything could have gone 100 other ways, that the world we got is just one branch on an enormous, quiet tree of worlds. No more real or final than any of the others, just the one that happened to grow this way. It takes some of the weight off somehow. Whatever went a particular way today, whatever choice you're lying here turning over, whatever left or right you took that you're not sure about, well, somewhere, on some other branch, it went the other way, and the sun still came up, and people still looked after each other in the dark, and it was all, more or less, all right. It usually is in the end. On nearly every branch, more or less, all those worlds are still out there, in a manner of speaking, safely far away, the quiet conquered city and the patient, half-empty one. The dead planet where a man held on. The small front room where two people are still dancing. They don't need anything from you. They're just out there, going on. The way all the roads not taken go on somewhere, soft and distant, and none of your concern tonight. It's funny, isn't it? How many of these worlds came down to such small things. A glove held a moment longer, an axe thrown a little higher, a man choosing not to build something late at night in an empty room, a goodbye said or not said, a sale that fell through or didn't. None of them turned on anything grand. They all turned on the small quiet hinges that real lives turn on too, the held tongue, the deep breath, the choice to stay or go. We tell ourselves the big things are decided by big moments, but they almost never are. They're decided by someone somewhere doing one small ordinary thing slightly differently than they might have. And you'd never know, at the time, which small thing was the one the whole future was hanging on. You almost never do. Which means, I suppose, that you're making them too, those small hinge moments, all the time without ever knowing which is which, every day. The kind word you nearly didn't say. The bit of patience you found when you didn't have to. The going on when you wanted to stop. You'll never see the branches that grow from them, the other worlds. Your small choices spin off into the dark, but they're there, somewhere, quiet and real and good, more of them than you'd ever guess. You've made more lovely worlds than you'll ever get to visit. Most of us have. It's worth knowing, even if you can't see them. Especially tonight, when you can't see much of anything and don't need to. But that's a thought for another time, not for now. Now is only for resting. Your only job now, your only job, is to rest. So let it all go, the whole gentle lot of it. Let the worlds drift off like boats from a dock, one by one, getting smaller, until there's nothing left of any of them but the dark and the quiet, and the warm weight of you, here in your bed, at the end of the day, with nothing to do and nowhere to be, and nothing coming for you. You're all right. You're safe. The day's all done. And if your mind wants to wander back through any of them as you drift, the quiet city, the cold tower, the gold afternoon, the small front room, let it. You don't have to hold them in any order. They can all blur together now into one soft, warm thing, the way the day's last thoughts always do, the way faces and places run together at the edge of sleep until they're not really pictures anymore, just a feeling, just a warmth, just a sense of having been somewhere kind. That's where you're going now, somewhere kind, somewhere with no edges to it at all. I'll go quiet now. I'm just going to let the words get further and further apart, and softer and slower, until they're gone all together, and there's only the quiet left, and you drifting down